Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Here's my only real Greentext-worthy story, though it's not much. Haven't had much paranormal shit happen to me. As a kid, I lived in the Midwest 1 mile out from a small, 3,000 population town. A couple neighbors in neighboring fields, but nothing real close. Driving distance away. Be 9 or 10 years old. Home alone around midnight, parents are at the casino. Watching Taxi Cab Confession on HBO since I'm a little boy alone with premium channels. Most of it is boring, so I go to one of the windows facing our doghouse. Whistle for Spot, can't hear anything but see her 2 eyes reflecting back at me. I would do this all the time at night. It was fun, but a little spooky to see eyes in the darkness like that. She knows I'm inside on the 2nd floor, so she just looks at me, and doesn't get out of the house. See a couple friends get in the cab. Back to the TV I go because that shit is very weird as a kid. A little bit later go back to the window cause I'm bored. Whistle again, no eyes from the doghouse this time. Eyes staring up at me directly under the window. Startled and scared, I duck down. Their eyes were not the same. Closer together, not quite same color white, seemed too high off the ground. I keep quiet and wait for a moment, listening for anything. Only crickets though. Crawl on hands and knees quickly to the deck door, big double wide sliding glass door, and pull the cords to close the blinds. Crawl back away to the right of the door into the kitchen and wait. Still kind of think it may be our dog, but I'm not sure. Either way, I'm a kid and staying hidden is exhilarating and fun. Couldn't hear anything come up the deck stairs, thinks it's safe to take a peek through the curtains of the deck. Crawl to the door again, but decide to make sure the sliding door is locked first. Poke my hands through the curtains near the handle and flick the lock down. Bam! Something loudly bangs against the door where my hand had poked through. The whole glass door vibrates from the hit. The rollers the door is on are very smooth. Had I not locked it, I could have just rolled open a bit. Jerk my hand away. Curtains go swinging all over, but too afraid to look onto the deck. Just crawl back to the kitchen, still trying to be as quiet as possible. Witch is laughing loudly on TV still. The kitchen has a window, but the deck doesn't quite reach under it. However, if someone were to lean over the railing, you could see into the kitchen. It's imperative I stay under the window and not be seen. Not just a game anymore, I'm legitimately afraid. Get worried that the main door down in the entryway is unlocked. Wait for the deck door blinds to stop swinging, listening for any movement at all. Crawl through the kitchen and living room. Wait at the top of the steps that lead to the entryway. There is a tall window parallel to the front door. You would have to cross in front of it to lock the door. Horrified to have to do this. Ever since watching Silver Bullet with Corey Haim, I always dart by windows whether open or closed. Dash down the stairs, lock the door, run back up. Something was looking through the window. Didn't stop to look closely, but the tan white siding was usually seen, though it was not visible, just a dark mass. Run and hide in a corner bedroom, with windows on 2 sides. Hide in the closet and just wait, still listening for anything. Only can hear inner city friends faintly from the living room. After a few minutes, I came out of the closet and poked my head up at the window that would be closest to the front door. Watch a dark shape walk from where the front door would be and go around the corner I was over. It continues around the house. It's going back to the deck most likely. I silently open the door and crawl towards the kitchen area again, but stay around the corner, waiting and listening. Hear creaking and straining coming from the door. It's trying to get in, trying to slide open the door. See a wave of light pass across the kitchen, living room area ceiling briefly. A car must be coming down the driveway. People turning off the highway and coming down our driveway at night causes that to happen. Handy when watching Skinamax and need a good alarm. Parents must be coming home. Wave of courage at the sight of their lights, run to the deck door and peek out the blinds. Really dark, so flick on the outside light. See black hunched man figure hoping the fence and disappearing into the neighbor's fields. It's the clover season, so the fields are tall. The figure seems to hunch over greatly or goes on all fours, can't see it over the clover. Still watching hard for where it disappeared. Eyes light up in the clover and stare at me for several seconds. Hear the car doors slam as my parents park. Eyes go out. Don't tell parents cuz both are smashed and annoying. Pretend to be asleep instead. Dog lops up to me the next morning. Big ass black lab, obviously chicken shit. Only came out after my parents made a racket trying to unlock the front door, bitching about keys. Never encounter that thing again. 21 years later and I still don't know what it was.
Turned 24 a week ago, I live in Belgium. It happened something like 4 or 5 years from now, bad memory so I can't exactly remember. May looks cliché but I have no reason to lie here, where a lot of fellas are role-playing, usually good reads by the way. Anyway. Got me a camera for Christmas. Decided to take some pics at night because of the nice atmosphere and for training myself to take photos. Might be weird but I have an aesthetic feeling for street lights. I was living at my parents' house in a village. So I walk, rediscovering this village by night. I walked for a long time. Arrived at the cemetery, here's the cliché. Everything silent, I didn't see anyone, not even cars. Barely some lightened windows, it was late. Decide to go for a look. There's a pretty wide central alley and graves on each side. At the end of the alley there's that building. I don't remember if it's a mausoleum or something else, but I think it's a mausoleum. Graves and gravestones on both sides of the mausoleum. Like I said, there's nobody but me. The alley is less than 100 meters, about 300 feet. I wasn't scared at all, I was alert because of the night's atmosphere, sounds and because I was alone. I walk and reach the mausoleum. I look at it, don't know if I took pics. On the right, from behind the gravestones, there's something that flies away. Black, not the shape of a bird, silent, too quick to be a bird, large, looks more like a veil. It just flew away until I couldn't see it anymore. It wasn't a bird. I wasn't at ease. I left the cemetery by checking behind my shoulder almost every footstep.
From Maine, USA here, me and some friends used to go camping way up north in the deep woods, miles and miles of nothing but woods. We would encounter and find the freakiest shit, but this one stuck with me. Be camping up near Chase Lake. 5 of us including me. Find a nice little clearing by the lake. Sit and chill after walking for hours. We notice something down the bank to our right. It's semi-tall and too far to make out. It's slowly hopping towards us. We decided to go towards it cautiously. As we get closer we notice its features. It looks like a big tailless dog with 2 legs standing up. Its face is mutilated. No lower jaw. Very wide white eyes. Black dog-like nose. Yellowish skin with very little fur. Some sort of reddish, orangish fluids pouring from the mouth. It continues hopping towards us. At this point we're scared shitless. Grab our things and bolt. Eventually I just head home instead of camping. Call me a coward if you want, but that thing was fucked up. We spent a solid minute at least looking at it. We couldn't have been more than 30 yards away from it. It slowly hopped, taking maybe a hop every 10 or so seconds, never blinked, large puffed out chest. It's given me nightmares ever since. This whole thing happened around 3 years ago. We avoided going back there or even the surrounding areas. Sadly, the last thing on my mind during the whole thing was taking pictures, but here's the closest thing I could find that resembles it.
Be me and my girlfriend a few years ago. Walking along the Missouri River near Kansas City. Nice peaceful walk during the day. April, so the water is still too cold to swim in. Chuck a small log into the water and try to hit it with rocks, dumb, but everyone loves throwing rocks while at the river. Floats too far away after a while. Try to hit a big pale, reddish oval-shaped rock poking out of the water about 20 feet offshore. First hit makes an odd, thwock, noise as it smacks the rock. Small rock doesn't bounce off, just sticks for a moment then rolls off into the water. WTF.gif. Break off a nice long branch of dead cottonwood, fuckers are all over the riverside. Shimmy out a few feet on a log half in the water. Reach as far as I can and poke the obviously not a rock. Stick sinks in a bit. Indention the stick slowly pops back out. Push it a few more times to see if I can move the whole thing. Dislodge something under the water. Swollen, pale human foot bobs up to the surface. Oh Jesus.jpg.government. Girlfriend calls 911. I had been poking its swollen belly. Thank God it was in the cold water and didn't smell. The parts nearest the water were almost a translucent white, though the upper fully exposed areas were cracked and reddish. Fucking gross. Apparently some old guy didn't look too much into it. It wasn't a big mystery. Just a guy died and ended up in the river. Cops never called me, just gave my initial statement when they showed up.
Junior year of high school. Only a few years ago. There's a deserted trail near my house that's 5 miles long. Thick humid woods surround the trail. It ends on the coast at an abandoned dock. Every time it storms, the trail is less of a trail. Near the entrance to the trail is another trail that leads to an abandoned house. At the entrance of the trail is a barricade formed from logs and leaves and dirt. Me and a friend decide to go to the abandoned house. Find a jar that's too dusty and cloudy to see what's in it. Decide to leave the abandoned house and try to get off the property as quickly as possible. Sprint off the property and make a clean escape. Decide to speed walk down the road to the entrance of the trail. A car drives past us on our way there, slowing down gradually. Stops further down the road from us. We look at each other and book it. Worth mentioning, nobody ever comes down this road. It's a really long road surrounded by dense woods, and the only things on it are the entrance into the woods and the abandoned home. This was around 6:30 p.m. in the fall. Anyway, make it to the entrance of the trail. Hop the barricade and peek over it to see what's happening. Some built fat redneck guy with overalls, unkempt hair and a scruffy ginger beard gets out of the car. He walks around to the back of his car and opens it up and starts looking for something. I've already started moving away from the barricade at this point. What he pulls out of his car I only catch a glimpse of, but it appears to be a rifle or shotgun. Friend turns his black graphic t-shirt inside out for camouflage, and I'm already wearing a green flannel. Running full speed through the woods from a fat redneck wielding a gun. Can't see him at this point, but I could hear the echo of him making weird redneck hunting calls. "Ski ye," he says. Instead of taking the path to the dock, we go off the path very far. Smear mud around our eyes and hide in a bush. Put my green flannel over my head. Too exhausted to keep running. Covered in sweat, mud, some rainwater from the night before, and a pinch of blood. After a good 40 minutes, we decided to try finding our way to the entrance of the woods without using the trail. By this time it's almost pitch black, but we didn't have lights. Hear the chorus of frogs and crickets begin to roar. Find some comfort in it. Make it out to the road by 9. The car is no longer sitting there. Decide to start walking back to my house. A different SUV drives up in the opposite direction we're walking and stops about 15 yards ahead of us with the high beams on. We keep walking past it. It pulls up slowly next to us. All the windows are down and there are 3 adult women in the car. "Do y'all need some help?" Friend tells them we're fine. They start giggling and speed off, tires screeching. Get home feeling scared, confused and tired. Still confused.
Be 12 years old. Grandma passed away yesterday. Just sitting in my room watching TV. Suddenly, I noticed I have this little old music box with a turn handle. Just one of those old music boxes, squeaky high-pitched melodies. Fits in the palm of your hand. I look at it and realize it was once a present my grandma gave me for a birthday when I was younger. Pretty emotional over it because I'm just a kid. Put the music box back on my dresser. Continue to watch TV. All of a sudden power is out. Fucking pitch black and shit. By the time I finally find my flashlight, the power goes back on. TV is giving static. 80s TV. Turn on and off, nothing helps. Finally fixed it and went back to MTV. Fucking TV turns off by itself. This is the moment a feeling of euphoria comes over me. I feel like I'm in the safest place ever, a warm bath. Music box starts playing music. It's a fucking manual music box, you don't turn the handle, no sound. Playing the whole song right in front of me. Nice feeling gets replaced by scared shitlessness in 0.6 seconds. Run screaming to parents' room. Parents don't believe me. I have never been so scared before or after that. I hope I never ever get to experience this sort of thing ever again. I swear on my daughter.
I've got a few Greentext stories, 2 firsthand and 1 sorta secondhand. Be me, 15, living in a homeless shelter for women on an army base with my mother and siblings, oldest of 4. 2 youngest suddenly start talking about playing with the naked guy. Mom separates them and interviews them both. Turns out their stories corroborate. They've been playing with a man wearing nothing but boots and a pair of pants. No men allowed in these units. Toys keep going off upstairs on occasion when everyone is asleep or downstairs. Mom starts asking around, rumors afloat that the man is a ghost from the Civil War for some reason. One day, one of the neighbor kids looks at a wall and suddenly starts screaming and crying about a ghost. Finally fed up, Mom gets advice from someone on exorcism or whatever. One snowy night in winter she recites a prayer asking the ghost to leave. She gets up to use the bathroom, which is next to the front door. Happens to look out the door footprints in the fresh snow leading away from our door but not towards. None of us had gone outside recently. Incidents stop, and siblings forget about the naked guy. Be me, 18. Now in college, but on the verge of dropping out because of lack of interest and a severe Final Fantasy XI addiction. Walking to my work-study job alone, lost in thought. Suddenly a school bus drives up alongside. A young girl that I can't see any distinguishing features leans out one of the back windows and yells at me. "Hi, internet screen name." Look around, confused. Just a few other students walking to their classes, paying no mind to the girl. Point to myself. "Yay, you, key." Still confused, wave back to the girl as the bus drives off. To this day cannot explain who this girl or person was that knew my literally who name and was in my town. Be me, 27. Just moved in with my dad in Mass after the company I was working for in Florida shut down, leaving me with no income. Living in our ancestral house that's been owned by my father's side of the family for over 100 years. One night settle in for bed. Wake up in the early morning. Half asleep but hear heavy footsteps coming down the hall to my room. Pretty normal for Dad to be up at this hour as he leaves very early for work. He opens my door and asks how I'm doing. I respond with grunts and such, still barely awake. We have a very short conversation, then he apologizes and leaves saying he was just checking in. I passed back out. Later, when Dad comes back that night, I ask him if he came to my room that morning, thinking I might have dreamed it but knowing I didn't because my dreams aren't really that vivid. He tells me he didn't come into my room that morning. Confused, I asked his girlfriend who was also staying with us at the time, knowing that it couldn't have been her because it was a man that I spoke to. She answers no. They tease me about ghosts a little for the rest of the night, and the incident isn't brought up again. I'm a skeptic, but I think if ghosts do exist, it could have been my grandfather checking on me. He died in '94 from lung cancer before I really knew him, but he lived in that same part of the house for most of his life, so, who knows?
Was during my second year of college. Living in the dorms at that time. Become good friends with this guy who was from New Mexico, we are in Oregon. One night, have a semi-large group of people chilling in the common area. All start talking of creepy things we've seen, the dorms were haunted. Someone killed themselves there. I knew the kid, which will provide a few more stories later on, but not this one. Realized that after about an hour of all of us telling stories to each other, the kid from New Mexico, will refer to him as NM from now on, hasn't spoken at all. Just quietly watched us all as he sat on the couch. I try to include NM, telling him it's his turn. He declines. I start talking about when I saw a child ghost in my old school. NM start fidgeting next to me as I mention ghosts. Demand he tells us what's going on. NM starts explaining right away. First of all, NM is a short, black dude. Funny guy but is never taken seriously. He tells us that his grandpa had died about 7 years ago. His grandparents owned a farm, so his grandma needed help managing things. NM's family went to live with them. When they were moving stuff out of the house into the barn, the grandpa's dog started snarling at them whenever they touched the old rocking chair that grandpa used to lounge in all the time. They finally got it into the barn, and that's when the crazy shit started happening. NM starts telling us that every night the dog, named Buzz, I think, would run into the barn every night at exactly 3:35 a.m. and come out around 7:50 later that morning. NM's grandma just attributed it to the dog being used to being close to grandpa. NM and his younger brother investigated one night. As NM and his brother went in there with Buzz, Buzz ran to the rocking chair, laid down in front of it and kept an eye on NM. Around 4 in the morning, the rocking chair started rocking. NM's brother freaked out, but NM said it was just the wind. That's when they realized they had closed the barn door behind them when they came in, and to their knowledge, there were no other openings, and it wasn't a windy night. It rocked until exactly 6:45 in the morning. Afterwards, Buzz got up, paced around it until 7:50, then went back into the house. Now I obviously said this is personal experiences, and I haven't been in it yet. This is about to change. As NM is telling this story, a couple girls are freaking out, some of the guys are laughing at how fucked that might be if it is true. I was genuinely intrigued. NM said that happened every night since the grandpa passed. He had gone into the barn at least once a month to witness it or see if it continued. During the winter term, my friend, who we'll call Caleb, and I became very close with NM. We always were hanging out. About the beginning of March, we were hanging out deciding what to do for spring break. I instantly had an idea. NM, let's go check out your grandparents' barn. He instantly laughed, saying, that's how you want to spend your spring break? Caleb instantly decided this was a good idea, He never believed the story, and started to jump on the bandwagon and demand we go there for at least a couple days. We planned to drive to a friend's house in Texas, but would stop at his grandma's house along the way. NM called up his grandma, asked if we could stop there, got the okay, and as soon as spring break started, we were on our way. Caleb had decided to try to get NM to slip up on his story to prove it was fake the entire way there. He didn't believe in things as ghosts and such. We stopped at a hotel the first night, deciding we'll make it the rest of the way tomorrow. Caleb then threw out the challenge that if he could debunk NM's story, then NM owed him $50, and if he couldn't, NM would get $50. They both shook on it, and the next morning, we were ready to figure out what was happening out in the barn. We got there around 6 p.m. that night. His grandma greeted us with open arms and dinner waiting on the table. Then there was Buzz, had to be at least 12 or something. Old golden retriever that still acted like he was a puppy. Wanting us to pet him 24/7, as soon as we stepped out of the car. I've never met a more friendly dog in my life. It was a lot of fun to hear stories about NM as a kid and the trouble he got into. He once got lost in a theme park and they had to call his mother to go pick him up, only for him to have run off again. Anyways, after dinner we were all sitting around watching a movie. I think it was Beetlejuice. As his grandma was getting ready for bed, she asked us if we needed anything. Caleb jumped at the chance and said, NM told us a story about the barn and your husband's rocking chair. NM's grandma looked at NM for a second and then said, is that the reason you actually stopped here? I thought you wanted to come visit me. We all felt super guilty right then, but Caleb continued on saying, NM has told us the story a million times and I think he's lying. We thought it'd be fun to see with our own eyes. Or something like that. His grandma then told us the same story. Except added on how NM's grandpa bought that chair and it was one of the first things they bought together after they got married. She also mentioned that Buzz didn't do this as often anymore. Only 3 times a week or so. She left the barn door open and the dog door open just in case he wanted to go. I then politely started asking my own questions. Why didn't she just not let Buzz out? Answer: he would bark all night until she did. Why not bring the chair back into the house? Answer: too many memories, plus it creeped her out after seeing how Buzz acted around it. Did it rock when she had it in the house, when she brought it back in? Answer: yes, not for as long, but it still did and that scared her to death. She said we could stay up and see if it would happen that night, and we were welcome to see it ourselves. She just asked for us not to try to drag Buzz out of there or disturb Buzz in any way or destroy the chair. We agreed and waited. A little bit before 3:30 that morning, we were starting to doze off. We took turns that night watching Buzz, in case he decided to go early or anything. About 3:30 we were all awake and I think all of us had different emotions towards what was gonna happen next. I was nervous, NM was scared, Caleb was excited. Then it happened like they said it would. Buzz instantly opened his eyes and walked towards the back door as though he couldn't see any of us walking next to him. The whole way we walked next to him, but he didn't acknowledge us. Caleb wanted to jump in his way, but I reminded him we promised not to disturb Buzz during this. We then got to the barn. Buzz walked in, and we all took a moment to collect ourselves before going in. NM told us he was gonna shut the barn door behind us as we went in so we could have no outside wind, there wasn't any, interfering. We went in and there was the famous rocking chair. Old and wooden and in bad condition. But there it was, and there was Buzz laying in front of it, curled into a ball, watching us as we entered. And for about half an hour, we just sat there. Nothing happened. I asked if I could look around the barn during this time, and NM said go ahead. I looked around for about 20 minutes, making sure there was no way wind or anything would make the chair rock, in case it did. I found some cool stuff stashed away that must have been NM's grandpa's. A old tobacco pipe and some old books that I really wanted. After deciding nothing was touching the chair and nothing could make it move, I heard growling and I went back. Caleb was still sitting in the same place, now just laying back against a wooden beam, staring at Buzz with a puzzled look. NM was slowly pacing and looked nervous. I asked what was going on. Caleb informed me he went closer to the chair to look at it better and Buzz snarled, bared his teeth and growled at him. I laughed and told them they had to be kidding. Buzz was too nice and too friendly. Caleb told me to try. As soon as I turned around, looked at the chair and Buzz, and took one step forward, Buzz did exactly what Caleb said he did. Buzz was no longer that dog that wanted me to pet him as soon as I got out of the car, he was now dangerous and not happy in the slightest. I backed up right away. Then, as I sat down, the chair began to rock. At first, I couldn't believe it. Something must have knocked into it to make it rock. I wanted out of the barn. I wanted out of this state. I wanted to be back in the car, driving back as fast as I could. The creaking of the chair continued for about 20 minutes straight. The entire time, Caleb was frozen in terror and NM looked like he was ready to run, as if he'd visited an old nightmare. If you guys don't understand why we were so freaked out, picture yourself in the barn, dead of night with no one around, dead silence except for a rocking chair that is somehow moving while facing you with a dog snarling at you if you even moved an inch. After it stopped, NM did the stupidest thing he could have done. He later told me he was trying to conquer his fear, but he went closer and tried to comfort Buzz. Fucking idiot. I later yelled at him saying, "What are you?" The next dog whisperer. As he got close, Buzz tried to bite NM's hand. NM jumped back and just stood there frozen in fear. Oh wait, NM didn't do the dumbest thing. Caleb did. I was too busy focusing on NM to realize Caleb had slowly made his way towards the door. By the time I realized what was going on, Caleb had gotten to the door and flung it open and ran to the house. NM and I looked at each other and I whispered, "Run." He shook his head and said no. Before I could ask why, we heard Caleb screaming for us to get out of there. Buzz had turned into a who knows what. He had sprung up, growling while his hair was sticking straight up. He was looking at the door and us basically daring us to try to leave. NM and I sat down, and so did Buzz. About an hour later, Caleb walked close enough to the door where we could see him. He started yelling at us, "Why haven't you left? Fucking get out of there." We pointed at Buzz and said, "We really can't." NM tried calming Buzz down, but he remained quietly growling at us. Glancing at Caleb once in a while. Caleb started complaining towards us asking if he could go back to the house. We said he could, but he didn't want to be the only one leaving, plus leaving us alone, so he just sat outside the door, watching this. After a little bit, Caleb said to NM, "You win, explain how you did this and you'll still win the $50. NM shook his head and kinda chuckled. He said he'll take the $50, but he isn't doing anything. I was internally panicking and trying to figure out if we were ever gonna be able to leave without Buzz attacking us. Then at about 6:50, Buzz stood up, walked over to us and started licking us. Wagging his tail and whining. We got up and were about to leave, but then I got the idea in my head to try one more thing. I told NM to hold Buzz as I walked over to the chair. Buzz started whining, but not in a mean way. Just whining like he wanted us to go inside or he wanted food. I studied the chair and couldn't figure it out. I tried looking for openings or something to cause it to move. I then sat down on the chair, hoping that I didn't die right then. Nothing happened. I wish I had some dramatic conclusion or something crazy that happened afterwards, but nothing did. We all went inside and ate breakfast and then left. Told his grandma what happened, and she said, "Well, I don't think Buzz would act that way towards anyone." That was that. I wish there was more to the story, but there isn't. For all I know, the barn still is there, the rocking chair is still there. Buzz apparently had really bad hips and they had to put him down a few months ago. I was pretty bummed out about that. Last I heard though, when NM's family would go out there to see if the chair would rock at night, they've never seen it move even once since Buzz died.
The Umbra Archives are an exclusive archive of Greentext, threads and ad-ran videos. They are dedicated to pursuing hard to find and obscure posts from the boards. Never stale, always fresh for your viewing pleasure. If you enjoy obscure and never heard before stories that are high quality, entertaining, and spooky, then check them out. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.